Good morning, America. Today we're examining for critical stories that directly impact American interests, economy, and foreign policy strategy. We're looking at a journalist killed in Lebanon during an American-backed ceasefire, a maritime crisis threatening 20% of global oil supplies that will hit American gas prices at the pump, a €90 billion Ukraine loan breakthrough tied to Trump administration priorities, and Europe's energy emergency that creates both significant opportunities and substantial challenges for American economic and geopolitical interests. These stories matter to American households because they affect gasoline prices you pay, defense spending priorities, geopolitical strategy, and long-term economic stability. Understanding these interconnected events is essential for comprehending where American foreign policy is heading and what it means for your wallet. Journalist killed in Lebanon. Ceasefire breakdown on Wednesday, April 22. Amal Khalil, a 32-year-old Lebanese journalist working for the Al Akhbar newspaper, was killed in an Israeli airstrike just 6 days into Trump's personally announced 10-day ceasefire in Lebanon that took effect April 16. This incident signals potential collapse of American-brokered conflict management in the Middle East and raises serious questions about the Trump administration's diplomatic competence. Khalil and freelance photojournalist Zain Abfaraj were documenting Israeli attacks in the village of Bint Jabil when a series of Israeli airstrikes began. Both journalists took shelter in a building that was subsequently struck directly by Israeli forces. Khalil became trapped under rubble. Lebanese authorities claim Israeli forces fired on Red Cross ambulances and rescue teams, preventing them from reaching survivors. The IDF denied obstruction but acknowledged two journalists were wounded and said details surrounding the incident were under review. Trump personally announced this ceasefire as a major diplomatic success for his administration. He framed it as evidence of his superior negotiating ability compared to previous administrations. The ceasefire's collapse within days fundamentally undermines Trump's claims of diplomatic effectiveness and raises questions about American ability to broker lasting Middle East agreements. The incident also highlights a broader problem: American military support for Israel, which includes advanced weaponry, intelligence sharing, and diplomatic backing, makes the United States diplomatically responsible for Israeli military actions. Whether Khalil was deliberately targeted or killed as collateral damage, the political damage to American credibility is identical. The incident fuels international criticism of American complicity in Israel's military operations. This is the fourth journalist killed by Israeli strikes since March 2026. Experts called for an international independent investigation after Israeli military strikes killed 3 reporters in early April, including one from a Hezbollah-run broadcaster. The Committee to Protect Journalists raised serious concerns about deliberate targeting based on a previous death threat Khalil received from the IDF in September 2024. From an American perspective, journalist deaths in U.S.-aligned countries create significant public relations problems domestically and internationally. American media outlets covering these deaths will pressure the Biden and Trump administrations for accountability. Liberal media outlets will use this incident to criticize Trump's Israel policy and his diplomatic approach to Middle East conflict. If ceasefires collapse this rapidly, Trump's broader Middle East strategy becomes fundamentally questionable. The administration staked considerable political capital on this ceasefire as evidence of Trump's negotiating prowess. Its rapid deterioration suggests either the ceasefire was never viable, Trump administration enforcement mechanisms are weak, or the Israeli government doesn't prioritize ceasefire compliance over military operations. All three conclusions damage American diplomatic credibility. If America can't enforce its own ceasefire agreements, American credibility with all parties suffers. This has long-term implications for American ability to mediate future conflicts globally. Wednesday morning, Iran seized 2 commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical oil choke point, handling approximately 20% of global oil trade. These seizures occurred just hours after Trump extended the U.S.-Iran ceasefire indefinitely, supposedly giving Iran time to present a unified proposal for negotiations. But Trump simultaneously maintained the aggressive American naval blockade of Iranian ports. This represents Trump's core strategic decision: extend ceasefire to appear diplomatic while maintaining maximum economic pressure on Iran through naval blockade. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent explicitly stated the blockade will continue, saying, "In a matter of days, Karg Island storage will be full and the fragile Iranian oil wells will be shut in." This suggests the blockade is designed to collapse Iranian oil production infrastructure permanently. Trump's approach is economic strangulation. He stated, "The blockade scares them more than bombing. They've been bombed for years, but the blockade they hate. They're losing $500 million a day, military and police complaining they're not getting paid. The strategic theory is straightforward. Economic collapse will force Iranian leadership to capitulate and accept American terms without requiring resumed bombing campaigns. This approach avoids the political costs of sustained military operations while applying maximum pressure through economic mechanisms. The U.S. Central Command reports turning around 31 vessels attempting to violate the blockade, primarily oil tankers. This systematic enforcement demonstrates American commitment to the strategy's implementation. However, this strategy contains a critical flaw. Iran views the blockade as a ceasefire violation. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi declared, blockading Iranian ports is an act of war. Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf stated unequivocally, reopening the Strait of Hormuz is impossible while the blockade continues. He characterized it as taking the world's economy hostage. This creates a fundamental impasse. The blockade simultaneously maintains maximum pressure and prevents negotiations. VP G.D. Vance was scheduled for second-round Pakistan talks with Iranian officials. Iranian negotiators refused to attend, citing the blockade as a ceasefire violation. Mojtaba Firdousipour, head of Iran's mission in Egypt, told the Associated Press no delegation would participate in talks until the U.S. lifted its blockade. The strategy is designed to win through economic collapse, not diplomacy. If Iran's economy doesn't collapse quickly enough, this could evolve into a years-long standoff with no diplomatic off-ramp. Oil prices spiked to nearly $100 per barrel, a 50% increase since the conflict began in early March at approximately $65 per barrel. American gas prices will directly follow global oil price movements. The average American household will pay significantly more for gasoline, diesel, heating oil, and all products requiring petroleum feedstocks, including plastics, chemicals, and manufacturing inputs. Brent crude at $100 per barrel translates to approximately $1.5 plus per gallon premium compared to pre-conflict baseline for the average American household driving 12,000 miles yearly at 25 miles per gallon consumption. This represents an additional $1,200,1500 in annual fuel costs. This has direct, measurable impact on American household budgets and consumer spending capacity. American companies shipping goods through the Strait of Hormuz face increased insurance costs and complex routing complications. Commercial shipping has virtually ceased due to attack risk, seizure risk, and escalating insurance premiums. This disruption affects American imports of manufactured goods from Asia and Middle Eastern products, contributing to American inflation and supply chain disruptions. Trump may be betting on rapid Iranian economic collapse forcing capitulation. If this occurs within weeks, the blockade strategy succeeds spectacularly and Trump claims diplomatic and economic victory. However, if Iranian economic collapse takes months or extends into 2027, American gas prices remain elevated through the 2026 midterm elections, politically problematic for Trump's party. This creates a strategic timing issue. Trump needs rapid Iranian collapse to avoid sustained elevated gas prices, damaging Republican electoral prospects in 2026 midterms. Senator Dick Durbin criticized Trump's approach. This president threatens consequences, then backs down repeatedly. You lose credibility once you've done that multiple times. Iranian leadership has watched Trump extend ceasefires multiple times while threatening military action, suggesting they believe he'll eventually negotiate, rather than maintain indefinite blockade. Why this matters to American interests: the loan approval directly benefits American interests in multiple ways. First, reduced U.S. financial burden for Ukrainian defense. Congress doesn't need to appropriate additional American funds to maintain Ukrainian fighting capacity. Second, European unity strengthened. The EU overcome internal divisions regarding Ukraine support, reinforcing NATO cohesion. Third, Russian sanctions reinforced. The 20th sanctions package includes maritime service ban on Russian oil tankers, reinforcing American sanctions strategy against Moscow. Fourth, Ukrainian defense capability maintained. Additional military funding of €28.3 billion in 2026 allocation keeps Ukraine armed and fighting Russian invasion. This serves American strategic interest in degrading Russian military capabilities without direct American combat involvement. However, the pipeline reopening creates a strategic complication. It restores Russian oil flows to Europe. Russia benefits from resumed oil exports, which the Kremlin uses to finance military operations in Ukraine. This directly contradicts American sanctions objectives of financially constraining Russia's military capabilities. Treasury Secretary Bessent previously granted waivers allowing some Russian oil shipments, then reversed course after stating he wouldn't renew them, creating confusion. Subsequently, he issued a new waiver extending until May 16, creating inconsistency about American commitment to Russia sanctions. This sanction inconsistency undermines the European sanctions package just approved. European policymakers questioned the logical foundation of imposing sanctions while simultaneously granting U.S. waivers allowing Russian oil sales. Trump can claim significant credit for this breakthrough because his administration's implicit support for Peter Magyar's election bid and pressure on Hungary created political conditions enabling veto removal. This fits Trump's narrative of strong foreign policy leadership and deal-making prowess. Oil prices hit $100 plus per barrel. The International Energy Agency characterized this as the largest oil supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. Europe spent an additional €24 billion, $28 billion on energy imports since the war began, 587 million daily in increased costs without receiving single additional units of energy. This represents unprecedented economic hemorrhage for European economies. The European Central Bank postponed interest rate reductions scheduled for March 2026, raised inflation forecasts substantially, and cut GDP growth projections. Energy-intensive economies including Germany, France, Belgium, and Netherlands face high technical recession risks if maritime disruptions persist through summer. This crisis creates significant opportunities for American energy producers and the broader American economy. American liquefied natural gas exporters, including Cheniere Energy, Sempra Energy, and others, experience surging demand and elevated prices. European demand for American LNG creates massive profit opportunities for American energy companies and strengthens American export revenues. American oil producers benefit from $100 plus barrel prices. Energy stocks surge. American oil companies report record quarterly profits. Energy sector contributions to American GDP increase substantially. Energy-intensive manufacturing will increasingly relocate from Europe to America, where domestic production makes energy substantially cheaper. This creates American manufacturing jobs, increases American industrial capacity, and enhances American manufacturing competitiveness globally. American chemical manufacturers, steel producers, and refineries gain competitive advantages as European facilities face energy cost pressures forcing reduced output or closure. Europe's energy dependence on American LNG gives Trump administration enhanced geopolitical leverage over European policy decisions regarding NATO, sanctions, and international affairs. This leverage strengthens American negotiating position on multiple global issues. However, elevated global oil prices mean elevated American gas prices. Trump faces domestic political pressure over fuel costs affecting American consumers directly. Retail gasoline prices will increase, reducing consumer purchasing power for other goods and contributing to inflation concerns heading into 2026 midterm elections. Trump claims he'll solve this through increased American domestic production, but expanding drilling output takes months minimum. This creates timing problem. Elevated gas prices persist through 2026 midterms, potentially damaging Trump's political position despite energy sector profits. Weakening European economies reduce American export demand significantly. European recession reduces American business investment in Europe. Economic stress strains NATO unity and weakens European defense spending commitments. Germany's economic crisis is particularly concerning because Germany anchors European economic stability and defense capabilities. Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz reported the country faces its worst economic crisis. German industry announced further production shutdowns and job cuts. Germany's economic weakness affects American defense strategy because weaker German economy reduces German NATO contributions and weakens European deterrent against Russian aggression. Europe's energy crisis may accelerate industrial relocation to America, increasing American manufacturing competitiveness and market share. This represents long-term advantage for American industrial capacity. However, it also creates geopolitical instability, complicating American interests in maintaining strong, unified Europe capable of managing regional security challenges.